2 months ago today, I relocated to Portugal. And it has been a great experience, mostly very positive, but there have been some bumps in the road. And there are going to be certain things that will continue to be negatives. Mainly my banking situation. Not a lot has changed with Novo Banco, and I'll make a follow-up video in the near future about that. But with the bumps in the road, I started thinking, could I ever live in the United States again? My name is Howie. This is Positively Portugal. Let's get into it. Well, the answer to that is yes. I'm an American national. That's where my passport's from. I'm a citizen, whatever you want to call it, citizen national. And not just me, but this is what you're most familiar with, the systems in place, and you might not like those systems. You might not feel comfortable with those systems that are in place anymore, and that's why you left, but those are still the systems that you're most familiar with. So I guess that this is a little bit of a clickbait question, but the answer is yes. You can live in the United States again if you had to. The real question is, where in the United States would I go if I decided that I was going to go back there? Well, as you know, I'm from New York City. And if you're a follower of this channel, you know the answer to that. I will not live in New York again. I will not live in New York City. I will not live in the suburbs of New York City. I will not live in New York State. Obviously, if I ever was in a situation where I felt I needed to go back to the United States, that's where I would go first and plot what my next step would be, where it would be. But if you're talking about a long-term living situation, under no circumstances would I consider New York again, with the high cost of living, the taxes, the crime, the crowds, the cold weather. No, thank you. No, thank you. And if you're a follower of this channel, you also know that I came to Portugal from Florida. That's where I spent the last 8.5 years before I got here. And I've made no secret about my love for Florida. I loved it there. I made great friends. I enjoyed the weather. I liked the spirit of the people. I felt like a Floridian. I was Florida man. But the last hurricane season broke me. And I had gone through a few hurricanes where we got hit or there was just widespread panic. But then this past hurricane season, we got 2 major hurricanes in the span of 2 weeks. We got hit hard. I was fortunate enough that I never even lost electricity in either of those hurricanes, whereas most of the people around me did. But with all the panic and the preparation and the waiting, and then seeing what my neighbors had to do in terms of cleaning up, and a good friend of mine lost everything. She only lived a few miles away from me. It broke me. I don't want to move to Florida again. I don't want to live there again. You combine that with how the cost of living there has gone through the roof. Obviously, it's not as bad as New York, but there's a big rental crisis in Florida now. Apartments are just shooting up with no end in sight. That sounds bad. Shooting up sounds like something else, but the price is shooting up. So you would think that the solution is to buy a place, but Florida has a humongous crisis going on with homeowners insurance. It's not affordable. And then you have companies who are just pulling out of Florida, and whatever those policyholders were left with a new company cost maybe twice as much, 3 times as much. So buying a place in Florida really is not the answer. The safer bet is still to rent in Florida. But if you were doing that to get away from the cost of New York, Well, you're in for a rude awakening, because the Florida that I left in 2024 is not the Florida that I moved to in 2016. So then I would think of other places that I've lived. I spent a year living in Yuma, Arizona. Yuma is in the southwestern corner of the state. It's 2 minutes from California, 2 minutes from Mexico. Now, I have not been to Yuma in 23 years since I left. But from what I understand, the population has exploded, and they've got issues with crime going on. So if I wasn't happy with my life in Yuma 23 years ago with a population that was under control and not so much crime, yeah, it's not going to happen again. And, to throw another thing on that fire, obviously, just like with everywhere else, the price has gone up. So if I'm going to pay American prices, it's going to be for a place that I like, a place that I want to be in. I lived for 2 years in Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh was good to me personally. I made friends. I became a season ticket holder for North Carolina FC, then known as the Carolina Railhawks, kind of the same thing what I did here with Vittoria, which was a colossal mistake. I regret getting involved with that football club. And that's another video that I'll be making in the near future. But North Carolina has an issue going on with their taxes. They're almost as high as they are in New York. And they too have undergone a population explosion. And with that population explosion comes more crime as well. I left Raleigh for the simple reason that I couldn't make it happen professionally there. You see, when you watch videos about the best places in the country to live in, North Carolina always makes that list. Raleigh and Charlotte, Raleigh and Charlotte. That the jobs are available. That's where you're going to find work. And that's true to a degree. In Raleigh, if you are an IT professional, oh yes, you can live like a king. They called Raleigh the Silicon Valley, or Silicon Valley, I'm not sure which one, of the East Coast. And yeah, but the problem is if you don't work in tech in Raleigh, you're either selling cars or flipping burgers. I was selling cars. No big surprise why I'm not doing that anymore. In Charlotte, it's the same thing, except with finance. You're either working in banking, some sort of finance, or again, flipping cars or selling burgers. No, you're not flipping cars. You're selling cars. The burgers are what's getting flipped. Oh, I'm going to regret that one. Now I think of other places. What's important to me? I like warm weather, but what I like more than warm weather is less taxes. See, in Florida, we didn't have a state income tax. And that was another reason why I really loved it there. So people say to me, well, why don't you go to Georgia? Okay, I can go to Georgia and Florida could be in my backyard and I'm paying more to live in Georgia because they have a state income tax. So I think if I were to move to Georgia, that would really make me tear my hair out, knowing that if I was just a few miles south, I'd be saving money. Of course, then I'd be going into the same problems I was talking about with why I won't go back to Florida. We have other states where there's no income tax. There's Tennessee, Texas, Nevada, and some states that most people would not choose to live in, like New Hampshire. I think out west there's Wyoming and South Dakota, I want to say, and Washington State, even Alaska. So right off the bat, I would eliminate South Dakota and Wyoming. I can't handle that kind of winter. Moving to Portugal made me tolerate a mild winter. And I could probably now tolerate an even colder winter than mild, but I can't handle those upper Midwest American winters. So, no. New Hampshire is interesting to me because I'd be close to a major airport in Boston. Problem is, you have New England prices there, even though there's no state income tax, and I believe that there's still not a sales tax. I might be wrong about that. I'm not an accountant or any kind of a tax expert. So it's intriguing, but, again, the winters are too cold, and the cost of living is simply not there. I loved Texas when I went there. I was only in Dallas and Fort Worth. So I guess that would be an option. I think Tennessee would be the most likely place. I've only heard good things about Nashville, but, I also know that with popularity, just like anywhere else, cost of living becomes unaffordable. I know that Nashville has really, really gone through the roof. But again, I've never heard bad things about Nashville. And although I've never been to Nashville, I've been to other parts of Tennessee. So if I were to move there blindly, it really would not bother me. But that being said, I also really enjoy not driving. I gave up driving 3 months ago, and I never looked back. I used to find driving to be relaxing. You go out, you have the good old-fashioned American road trip. But as the years passed, and the cost of gas went up, and the cost of car repairs, and a new car, it became very stressful. And it reached the point where at the end I hated driving, and I couldn't wait to give it up. I'm not going to go back to driving here with gas costing more than $7 a gallon in Europe. So I think if I ever were to go back to the United States, the most likely destinations for me would be Nashville or Dallas/Fort Worth, one of those two places. The reason I won't go to other cities in Texas, like Houston, for example, huge crime issue there. I know Austin is getting bad for crime, and the cost of living has gone up at a faster rate than other cities. And San Antonio, I'm not even sure if they have an airport there. If you're going to move to Texas, to me, it has to be the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's where you got the major airport. You'll have the lowest airfares. And I can tell you, I had a great time in both of those cities. They're both relatively safe. I don't think I would have any issues moving there. Yeah, I'd be a little pissy with the colder winters, but yeah, that's probably where I would go, either there or Nashville. Now, that being said, I don't intend to leave Portugal. It's just, when I woke up this morning, it was the 2-month anniversary of my arrival in Guimarães, and it gave me a chance to do some reflecting. So that's my take on everything. Well, if you want more videos about moving to Portugal, the process of getting there, Portuguese football, anything Portugal related, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. These are the best things you could do to help a content creator on YouTube. I want to thank you all for watching, and Forza Vittoria.